Hey everyone. All right, not to keep complaining about the internet, but it's a problem. I can't stream and have quality, and I can't record and upload quickly. So I'm trying to record things like as I do them, and upload when I can, very slowly, um, so that I get some quality and some regularity of posting. Just to let you know what's going on and why my schedule might be a little funny. Um, and why the videos that I'm going to be trying to record might be less well planned than a show or something like that I'd probably rather do, like with the Crossroads or whatever. But anyway, it also has some advantages because you hopefully can see what I'm doing as I'm doing it and discover it as I discover it. I've been working on something. I was meant to. I really planned. I really planned that the free time I got today, what I was going to do is go look at projections because I really need to work on that. One of the things I've been keyed onto is that projection scores might be higher for those who simply rank more players, like players that don't matter, because you're getting micro scores added to your overall score. For every player that you rank, essentially, even a guy that doesn't do anything, but you said he'd get a catch, and so you get a micro score if he was over or under that. And since I was only ranking mostly fantasy relevant players, my scores might be lower. So I was going to go look at like just top 24 and rescore it that way. But it's rookie season, and I'm a dynasty player, so instead I started digging into the database again today, and that made me think of you guys. So what I was looking for is a way to like the graphs that I think are really the best summary, the best overview of how a player did, how a player produced in college, especially for wide receiver. But I've also been trying to work on tight end and quarterback models and running back models as well, because those just aren't as sharp. They're just not, as I have them right now. And so I was looking for a way of doing all of that. Obviously, and one idea that I woke up with, and it was just in my head, it said I've got that total MS section in the database, which is rushing and receiving yards and touchdowns combined, right? Which is a bit of a mouthful, but it's basically college dominator scores by age, but for rushing alone, rushing and receiving combined even. That's why it's total MS. And I was like, what if I ran, because what I've been doing is taking the, to try and display the graphs in a single value, I've been taking the average of the successful wide receivers away from each individual prospects by year and then looking at the average. And I've been posting that as well as posting like the top 10 total MS receiving yards at age 18, 20, 21. It's just a little cumbersome. Some people like the graphs, I do, but I think a value would be really useful, just that you can sort the whole table by, right? So what I thought I'd do, what I started to do with receivers was times, and I'll show you because I'm not sure words will do it, times what a player did, the difference between their production at each age and successful wide receivers, by the R squared value for each age. So you're getting the value of it in terms of its predictive power, and their average difference compared to successful wide receivers. And I've actually upped that level for the database. It's now based on wide receivers that have had at least one top 24 season, not one top 36 season. So it's a little harder to hit. The levels raised a bit. Anyway, and I was timesing it all by the R squared value, even the average, and then that produced a single number that not only represented how different they were over or under average successful wide receivers at each age, but also incorporated how important that value is based on how old they were when they did it. And I was kind of liking that. And then I woke up with the idea, why don't I just do that to the combined or the total rushing MS as well, and that would give me something for running backs. And then while I was on that, instead of doing anything for my projections, I was like, I could just use the averages for tight ends as well, and they could have this exact same value, but based on the successful averages for tight ends at each age instead of wide receivers. And I could put that in a single column, and then I'll be using the total MS for running backs and the receiving MS for tight ends and wide receivers, and it would all be adjusted by position by using the R-squared values that I've found for them, and the for each age, and also incorporating rushing for the running backs. Great. So I did that and then ran tests on it. So let me show you a little what that looks like. This is I've tried and make this like this is my master sheet, as it were, because it's got all my college data, and then it streams it into this. What you're looking at right now is basically the database that you all get, but it's also got the players I don't have data for in, and it's also got active lookup values. So it's a little hard and cumbersome to run, but you know it's exactly what you have. So what I was doing is, if I skip over here to, it meant putting in a lot more columns, so sorry about that, but it's like 261 at this point. So yeah, here we have the average combined receiving yards. Actually, I've done it for just receiving yards as well, but then I found I was getting a little better testing if I incorporated touchdowns, which is what College Dominator does. If I adjusted by R-squared, if you just run the numbers, and I posted this on Twitter, if you just post the raw numbers per player, if you're just looking at the numbers, the receiving yards matter a lot more than the receiving yards and touchdowns combined, and I think that's some of the noise in College Dominator, because touchdowns are kind of randomy in college as well. But if you incorporate the R-squared values, so you're talking about how relevant they are by age, the scores actually come out better if you use receiving yards and touchdowns. So this is the average for each successful player with a top 24 season from 2003 to 2016 at each age. And then what I do is in the next column, and you've probably seen this if you looked at the database, I literally just take away what they got at that age from the average. And so you get a plus or a minus score, like Chris Chambers here, with 2.8% over the average of successful wide receivers at age 21. Just a quick note, the reason I normally shorten my sample size from 2003 to X is because I only have college data from 2000, which is I think when play-by-play data started to be recorded. So any player that played in college before that, I don't have their complete college profile, even if it's on Sports Football Reference. But if from 2003 and on, I have pretty guaranteed I have all of them. But anyway, so that's what the difference from average looks like. And then what I was doing is literally, I created a separate column from over here, and it's going to be really hard to see it in this one because it's a really big formula, because I'm doing 3 different positions right here. Yeah, okay, I'm going to be able to make sense of that one. But literally what it does is times those difference values by their R-squared values, and I've got them plugged in instead of looking up in the master sheet. So that adjusts by how relevant that score is. Like that 5.4 score is only relevant to the degree that it actually predicts NFL success, and the same with 19, 18, 20, or whatever age it happens to be. So that's what I was doing. Let me save this, which will take about 2 minutes because it's gotten that big at this point. Yeah, and threatens to crash. All right. And over here, what I did is I tested all those scores. So this is essentially, if we skip back up here, and this is on the R-squared value and the database that I upload. I've got tight ends, wide receivers, and running backs all separated out here. And if you just look at the difference in receiving yards and touchdowns for tight ends, these are the scores you get for each age. Now the problem with this is, while I've got 159 tight ends who were drafted who fit this sample model, I only have like 3 that played at the age 23, for example. I don't know the exact number, but it's not actually 159 that I have data for in the 23rd year, age year, because not all of them play at every age. And so this number, which is higher than 18, it's higher than the average, isn't as good because there's simply less players with that data, which is why I was trying to use the averages in my models, because then you can get a score for their entire college career, and every player can have a score. But the averages were always coming up lower than the age 18 or age 23, and so that's why I was trying to create a single value that actually adjusted that way. Over here you can see the scores for running backs as well. Where are they? So the blue ones here, I highlighted them just to make it clear. That's just using receiving yards and receiving touchdowns. The orange ones is total MS, so it's using rushing yards and receiving yards, rushing touchdowns and rushing touchdowns. It's everything, and that's why I've only got scores for running back for that one. And as you can see, the scores were coming up pretty well, but I've got a similar problem where the average was actually higher in this case. Still, 14% is positive for NFL standards of predictiveness, but it wasn't great. And I wasn't sure where the signal was going, since age 21, 22, and 23 tends to be entirely, literally useless. So I wanted to create an overall score for that as well. And you can, again, hopefully that explains the RSQ or the R squared tab a little better, and how you can use it to see what the testing numbers mean. So skipping down here, after I combined it all in the way I just suggested, the predictive scores for just that single value actually come up higher than any single year, and definitely higher than the averages. So this production score that I've been working on, and I woke up and decided to do it for running back and tight end as well as wide receiver, are actually far more useful at describing if a player is likely to be successful in years 1, 2, and 3 on average, compared to any single year or the average. So this production score, to me, I'm just calling it production score, it's probably a better name, is far more useful than any individual year, because this is a score for every player no matter what age they played, and it's adjusted for the relevance of the age that they played at, and it's coming out with a higher R squared compared to average points per game in the first 3 years. And that's especially relevant for tight ends who struggle in the first 3 years, and yet still getting a fairly good score. So that's what the production score is. It's going to be added into the database. You'll see it along with all these extra tabs with let me see, where are they all? If you unhide them, you get to see the average combined receiving yards, people that meet the threshold for every position, and so on and so forth. And you can also see the difference for each player compared to those average in the database. So the database got a bit larger, and the main reason for it is to add in those production scores. And I'm actually excited with those production scores, because where they're scoring higher, I think if I combine them or use them by themselves without draft capital, I think I'll be able to raise my model's effectiveness without overfitting it, which a lot of models run into. And the difficulty is because I'm using MS already, I'm worried about overfitting myself, because if I include two more MS values, I might be double counting, getting some multicolor crossover with some of the signal. So I have to be careful with it, but even just those added to draft capital should create a more powerful model. So that should be good. Now, how long have I been talking? 14 minutes. That's too long. I'm aiming for 5-minute videos. That was too long. What I want to do is go through the database with you, because that's what I was just starting to do, and I was like, that might be interesting to watch, and look year by year how that graded each player, and what they did in the NFL. Like, some of the names are familiar. Like, if we look at the 2017 draft class, we know if those players are good or bad now, or 2016. So how did it do? Now, the 17, 18, and 15% score describes it, but I don't think that that correlates with a lot of people. Like, I want to see the players. Literally show me how you do, how it did. And you can do that year by year with the database. So it's one of the steps I do after I run tests. So I was going to go through that a little bit with you, but I want to save it for a separate video so I can actually upload these fairly regularly. So I'll leave that for now. This was just me describing what projection score is, showing you where it is, and me describing what I think I'm going to be able to use it for. In the next one, I will try to show you how that production score did in a literal sense by looking at player names instead of, percentages, because they're less interesting anyway. Alright, so let me get off, and I'll talk to you again looking at how production score did Draftcast by Draftclass. Thanks.